3, 2, 1.
Hi, this is Genesis, and you're watching Dante's Boxing Nation.
May 23rd, you know, tune in, Sky Sports, get your tickets, get your hats, get your popcorn, get your water, get your beer, get your alcohol. It's going down, baby. Woo! It's me again.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So that right there was Demetrius Andrade promoting the first scheduled fight he had with Zach Parker May 21st, before he pulled out of that fight with a shoulder injury. Now, when the first fight went to purse bid, Frank Warren, he won the bid with $1.8 million, which guaranteed Demetrius Andrade a purse over $1 million. But of course, once again, that fight fell through because of Demetrius Andrade's injury. Now, would you believe me if I told you that when they did the second purse bid to reschedule this fight, Frank Warren, he won the second bid, but this time he won the second bid with an unopposed $305,000, which means that guarantees Demetrius Andrade around $184,000 for an interim title shot. $305,000, that is 16% of what the first purse bid was. I mean, $180,000, that sounds like the money that Demetrius Andrade is usually paying his corner. So it's not a surprise at all that Demetrius Andrade, he pulled out of the fight. So nevertheless, I made a video reporting this news that once again, Andrade, he pulled out of this fight with Zach Parker at 168 for the WBO interim title, which would have put him in position to become Canelo Alvarez's mandatory, and would have forced Canelo Alvarez to vacate one of his belts for the fourth time in his career when he had a dangerous mandatory. But now that Demetrius Andrade has pulled out of this fight, where does he go from here? He's going to now be fighting at a new weight class. He's beltless as of right now. I've already said if he's moving up to 168, the two fights that make the most sense is either fighting Zach Parker to become Canelo's mandatory or fighting against David Benavidez. Remember, guys, Andrade is now a free agent. He's no longer signed to DAZN. So that also means he could go over to PBC. In fact, you know, I had talked to Demetrius Andrade's father, and he had told me that PBC people, they reached out to him and they said, whenever you're looking for a new home, you know, hit us up. So it could also be possible that Demetrius Andrade is talking to PBC and working out a multi-fight deal that would probably end up with him fighting against David Benavidez, which would make all the sense in the world for both Andrade and David Benavidez, because we all know that Canelo Alvarez is on a no black or Mexican fighter diet right now. I mean, Canelo, he done cut him out like carbs. Now, obviously, Andrade signing with PBC, that's all speculation. But what I can tell you is Demetrius Andrade, he did break his silence after the news started to circulate that he pulled out of this fight. And in response to this news, he said, "We just getting started. Keep calm." And then someone posted this comment on my video that I just did reporting the news that Andrade pulled out of the Zach Parker fight. He said, "I talked to Boo Boo and y'all in for a surprise. I can't say, but it's a bigger fight." So that definitely sounds like good news. And I'm sure Demetrius Andrade is going to be getting paid way more than $180,000, whoever this opponent is. And obviously, Zach Parker is not a big name, so it shouldn't be too hard to be fighting someone with a bigger name, but I'm really curious to see who it will be. I mean, the fighters that I don't think it's going to be would be, of course, the regular WBA champion, David Morrell. I don't believe it's going to be David Benavidez. I don't believe Andrade, you know, he would fight someone like that when it comes to his very first fight at 168. There's also a possibility that Andrade can stay at 160 and could be working on a multi-fight deal to fight Jamal Charlo, or they meet each other at 168. After all, Jamal Charlo, he did say he would rather fight Andrade before he fights David Benavidez. So there's a lot of other fighters that it can be, but it'll be interesting to see who the opponent will be. The only fighter we know for sure it ain't gonna be is Canelo Alvarez. You know, I told Demetrius' dad, Paul Andrade, if you guys get the David Benavidez fight, it won't matter if Canelo Alvarez is still ducking you then. I mean, of course, considering you win the fight, because Andrade versus David Benavidez will be boogeyman versus boogeyman. Whoever would win that fight would make Canelo Alvarez look even that much more of a joke in the division. Because the boxing world has already started to turn on Canelo Alvarez in terms of putting pressure on him to fight the best fighters in his own division. But it's going to get way worse if we get an Andrade versus David Benavidez fight, or even a Jamal Charlo versus Benavidez fight. Because whoever wins that fight, once again, is going to put an enormous amount of pressure on Canelo. It's going to be almost impossible for Canelo to justify not fighting the winner. You know, in my last video reporting this news that Andrade pulled out of this fight, I obviously had a lot of Mexican fans in the comment section, as usual, not disagreeing with anything that I said. Their only complaint was, why did you have to bring up Canelo? I was liking this video until you brought up Canelo. Yeah, that sounds about right. I could see that smile turning into a frown when you hear Canelo Alvarez's name, because you know I'm about to say a whole lot of stuff that you don't disagree with, because you know it ain't nothing but the truth. And understand this, guys. This is why I call these type of fans decafs. They didn't want Canelo Alvarez to be mentioned, or as some of them say, why did you have to talk so much about Canelo in the Demetrius Andrade video? Now, the first thing you will notice when you see that video that I just did is, in my thumbnail, I had a picture of Andrade and Canelo. Now, I'm getting to my main point, but just follow me for a minute, because I want you to see how ignorant these fans are. The whole purpose of Andrade fighting Zach Parker was to become Canelo Alvarez's mandatory. No matter how much it hurts your feelings when you guys hear Canelo Alvarez's name, what you fail to realize is Canelo's name will always be synonymous with Jamal Charlo and Demetrius Andrade. No matter what happens, if Canelo decides to never fight them, his name will always be synonymous with their names. Listen, these fans are not that dumb to where they don't understand that if you're talking about fighters in the welterweight division, for example, before the Errol Spence and Crawford fight was being negotiated, whenever I made a video about Crawford, I was talking about Spence and vice versa, right? Before Anthony Joshua and Wilder lost, and everyone was talking about Wilder versus Joshua, whenever I made a video about Wilder, I mentioned who? Anthony Joshua. Way before Keith Thurman lost to Manny Pacquiao and he was still the welterweight champion and he was avoiding Errol Spence. Every time I made a Keith Thurman video, I would be mentioning Errol Spence and vice versa. As I did in this video and as I did in my last video about Andrade. Every time I make an Andrade video, I mention David Benavidez's name. If we're talking about a guy fighting at super middleweight, why would we not talk about the other relevant super middleweights? Why wouldn't we talk about Canelo when he's the one that has all the belts? All roads will lead to Canelo Alvarez if he's the one that's holding the belts at 168. And these Mexican fans that I'm talking about, they know this already. The reason why they don't want Canelo Alvarez's name to be mentioned, because they don't want Canelo Alvarez to have to fight Demetrius Andrade. Because deep down, they know that Canelo Alvarez is a very limited fighter. They know deep down that Canelo Alvarez is not even pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world. Because if they truly believe that, they would want to see this fight. They would want more people to talk about Canelo fighting Andrade. They would be on Canelo's Instagram saying, hey, champ, you know, I'm a big fan, but when are you going to fight Andrade? We want to see it. We know you can beat him. But do you think they say stuff like that? Of course not. It is the complete contrary. They don't even want you to mention Canelo's name because they want the Andrade problem to just disappear. They want the Charlo problem, the David Benavidez problem to disappear. And that brings me to the point I was making all along when I told you guys I haven't even got to my point yet. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in my last video, once again, I told you guys there was a lot of Mexican fans, so no surprise, defending Canelo. Man, why you had to bring up Canelo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I was liking the video until you brought up Canelo when you were talking about Demetrius Andrade pulling out of a fight. Yeah, of course. So I decided to respond to some of them, asking them a simple question. And yes, I confirmed they were Mexican and not any other Latinos. So I asked like 3 guys. I said, let's say you were the matchmaker and you could actually pick what fight happens next. If it were up to you, would you prefer the Andrade versus Parker fight or the Andrade versus Canelo Alvarez fight? And do you know 2 out of the 3, because the 3rd guy didn't respond, but I'm gonna put up one of the comments right now. 2 out of the 3, they said they would rather see Andrade versus Parker. And these are Mexican fans. You see how these fans, they always prove everything I say is accurate? This is the reason why, even though the truth hurts them, they never disagree with anything that I say in my comment section. They never disagree with anything that I say. Because they know that even if they try to disagree with me, I'm going to completely expose them and contradict every single thing that they say. Because there is no way you can trump the truth. I mean, sure, you could say your mama, you can say F you can post insults, you can call me whatever you want to call me, but the one thing you will not call me is a liar. Because if you do, I'm gonna make it rain with receipts. So with that being said, let's get back to this meat that's cooking on a grill when it comes to these Mexican fans saying they would rather not see their countryman, the Mexican, involved in a fight with Andrade, and instead they prefer to see Andrade versus Parker. There are just so many contradictions in that statement, I almost don't know where to start. Because of course, obviously, we all know there's only one reason they wouldn't want to see their guy, Canelo, fighting against the guy that Canelo has been avoiding for damn near a decade now. But just think about this. Once again, like I always ask you guys, you could try this at work. You could ask one of your coworkers or whoever. You ask one of these Mexican fans, who would you say is the best between Charlo, Andrade, and Canelo Alvarez? And I can almost guarantee you, they're almost all going to say Canelo Alvarez. And even if there was one to say, oh, well, I believe it's Charlo, I believe it's Andrade. Even when they say that, they screw up, because then you would have to admit that Canelo Alvarez was never pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, and he is truly overrated. But since we know these type of fans are always willing to go down with the sinking Canelo Alvarez ship, they're going to say Canelo for the most part. And if you say Canelo Alvarez is better than these guys, that means even you are acknowledging that if Andrade beats Canelo Alvarez, hands down, Andrade is pound for pound one of the best fighters in the world, in the top 10. And if Andrade beats Zach Parker, nobody puts him in the top 10 when it comes to the pound for pound list. And every Mexican fan knows this, right? So why would you say you would rather see Andrade fight the guy that's not going to do anything for his career in terms of ranking, instead of fighting the guy Canelo Alvarez that is going to put Demetrius Andrade on the pound for pound list, assuming Andrade beats him, because he will beat Canelo Alvarez. So what I just asked you guys right now is called a rhetorical question. We already know the answer to it. I mean, what kind of boxing fan says, I would rather see the lesser irrelevant fight instead of seeing one of the biggest, one of the most significant fights that the fans have been asking for damn near 7 years through 3 weight classes? Only a race fan would say that. Only someone that does not want to see the best fights but they just don't want to see Canelo Alvarez lose. And they certainly don't want to see him lose to another black boxer, because they have seen that way too many times through the decades, through the centuries in the sport of boxing. They would rather Canelo Alvarez go down as the most overrated fighter, not just the most overrated Mexican fighter, the most overrated fighter in the sport of boxing. They rather him retire with that reputation than him going in there on some all or nothing type of stuff against the best fighters that he's been known for avoiding. Well, Canelo fans, you might just get what you're asking for. If you're lucky, if he doesn't end up being forced to get in there with another tough guy and possibly getting knocked out. Because if he doesn't retire, that's most likely what's going to happen next. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one.
All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes,
Fever blisters, diabetic ulcers,
this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Andrade Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to Andrade.com.
like them on Facebook and follow them on Instagram.
Through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So to get this hookup, make sure you follow and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram.
Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.